Hey everyone, welcome back to AI Insights. I'm your host for today, Fleur Prince, and here together with my co-host Grania.
Hi, everyone. And today we are joined by the incredible Matthew Kilbane.
Hi.
Extremely excited to have him on the pod, recurring member. And Matthew, yeah, take it away.
Well, hi, Gran, Floor. Pleasure to see you guys, see you ladies again. And for the audience out there, hi, my name's Matthew Kilbane. I, as you can probably tell by my voice, am an American. I'm located in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So I own two companies, one a consulting company where I consult on AI governance and AI implementation. Certifications are out there if you want to view them. And another that is a recent startup, and it's a medical robotics company that I'm currently seeking some additional seed funding for. So it's a fun time. Coinciding with that, it is. I mean, life is amazing,
No,
right?
exactly.
Of
I think
course.
that's yeah, best
Yeah.
way to see it. And it definitely is a fun time. I mean, Fleur and I constantly say like the reason that we do this, we've been doing this for 2 years now and nearly every week. And the reason we keep doing it is because we have so much fun doing
Oh,
it.
it's
And
amazing.
it's interesting stuff. It's the frontier of society. And
Hmm.
we're just
Hmm.
excited to get an opportunity to dive in today. So, Matthew's already introduced himself, but I'll kind of do a little about, kind of talk about his background a little bit more for those of our listeners who are, seeing him for the first time or hearing him for the first time. So Matthew is an author, technologist, and governance advisor, as he said, based in Washington, D.C. His 2026 book, AI for Humanity, Architecting a Better Future, is a field manual for navigating the intersection of AI, labor, geopolitics, and planetary survival. Super briefly going into more about his background. Yeah, 20 plus years of military service and, just so many different accomplishments. You mentioned your certifications as well. Certified AI engineer, ISO
Hmm.
it goes on, the list goes on, but, really special person. And our podcast obviously explores a lot of interlapping themes. I think like if there was one word to put our podcast, it would nearly be multidisciplinary in the way that, kind of AI intersects with everything. So, especially that we're going to be discussing today with an author, that kind of relates AI, labor, geopolitics, and just like, the world as a whole, that's going to be something
Hmm.
that we're really excited to discuss. So, yeah, Matthew. So, our kind of title for this podcast is Architecting the Future and What AI
Hmm.
Owes Humanity. And we would love to hear your kind of feedback on that theme and, just
Sure.
anything about your book.
So just kind of so first off, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And my book, AI for Humanity, Architecting the Better Future, is a multidisciplinary, essentially magnum opus of my
Uh-huh.
career so far.
Hmm.
Because again, I'm looking at this from many different hats. I'm looking at this from a public service hat. I was a member of the Department of Homeland Security for 8 years. Military. I'm a certified logistician. I worked for Delta Airlines, beer distributors, and pharmaceutical companies, military logistics, so global supply chains. I've been an emergency manager, so I understand emergency management and what the systems that our society needs to function. So when I first started getting introduced to artificial intelligence, it was about 3.5 years ago, like in earnest. I was an employee with a very large company, and I was a member of their AI Center for Excellence. And that was my aha moment. Right, because I've been in IT specifically for about 12
Hmm.
years now, and yeah, I never really had a technical specialty. It was always like business management, project management, architecture, like building things, building teams, all that stuff, right? I'm a pretty good builder, pretty good architect. And then AI was just my thing, right? It just tickled my fancy. The light bulb went off, and then so did my career. So yeah, and I saw what was happening with artificial intelligence and how we were intersecting at a time of mass global crises, right? With breaching all the planetary boundaries, which is where my book starts. Like the current situation that we're
Hmm.
in. We have this amazing new technology that's automating the knowledge tasks, right? Like so the same thing that happened to manual labor, right, with the industrial revolution, right, where we
Hmm.
took all these manual processes and automated them. Now the same thing is happening to knowledge work. So that those very same plays, right, that were occurring all across society, like 150 years ago, are now those same playbooks are being reenacted right now across knowledge work. However, we're humans. So we either work with our hands or work with our minds. So if we can't work with our hands and we can't work with our minds, then what are we doing with our time in this current system that we're in? If so
And what's
facto, we
paying our
just,
rent as well.
yeah,
No.
right? So and again,
Okay.
but even how we allocate the resources, right? Because
Hmm.
again, society, humanity has been around for, well over 100,000 years. We transitioned from hunter gatherer to agrarian, to the Iron Age, to the Stone Age, to the Industrial. And each of these transitions required a change in governance, a change in function, and a change in how we interacted and operated with each other, right? Like the rise of city states, the rise of agrarian
Mhm.
agriculture, the domestication of animals. All these things changed our society. That's happening again now. So, hence the book.
Yeah, awesome. What I also saw, like when you open the book, you open with one question where you say, that is a seed for everything. How and
Mhm.
when will AI take my job?
Yes.
You say answers like learn to code and don't worry about it are lazy leadership. But
Mhm.
what is your honest answer in like, why did it take a whole book to give it?
Well, it doesn't take a whole book to give it, but it takes a whole book to believe the answer. So
Hmm.
so I can, right? I mean, because look, I can get you from point A to point B. I can just put you at point B, right? Based on what I know, my world experience, and what I've learned throughout this essentially 3.5 year odyssey throughout my career, right? I can do that, but will you believe me? Who am I, this stranger, this American? And then again, and so because product adoption, right, in which ideas are products of the mind, product adoption is based on trust. So if I need you to adopt my ideas, if I need you to understand why we need to do the things we need to do as a society, then I need you to understand who I am and why you can trust me. And therefore, I need to tell you the story, right? So I need to architect the narrative. And so, right. And again, in this day and age, right, look at the geopolitical stability, right? And this is a European podcast. Hey, hello, Europe. I know that I am MAGA presenting. I am a white, middle aged male from the United States of America, 20 years. We don't have a real good reputation right now, right? We
No.
don't. So exactly. So in order to get you
That
to
was an
trust
honest
me,
answer.
like, no, no, no. Let's look. This is how adults talk, right? This is called adult level problem solving, right? We're not talking about each other. We're talking about the issues. And the
Mhm.
issues is people that look, talk, walk, act, and have my type of background are not the best type of people. Period. On planet and all of planet Earth knows. It, okay. All right. But I think I figured something out. I think I figured out a way that we can move forward because not all people that act like not all people that look like me act like the people that look like me. If you know what I mean. Some of us actually care. Some of us actually respect women. Some of us actually want to build a better future for humanity. Because honestly, let's face it, we're millennials. Our parents failed, right? We are the first generation in recorded history that is being left off measurably worse than the generations that came before it, right? So therefore, it is incumbent upon us to take on that social responsibility and attempt to leave the world a better place for our kids. Because I deserve better, you ladies deserve better, and our children and their children deserve better,
I
right?
mean, it's a really good point, kind of the
Mhm,
intersection of all these different crises and kind of the especially as well how polarization plays a role and kind of,
mhm,
the amplification of different demographics and even like how AI drives that separation as well. This kind of relates back to your book because as you know, you're
exactly.
kind of immediately segueing into this. You've also opened in the book with something you call the crossroads polycrisis, which is
Mhm,
five converging global crises. So climate, social fracture, which you've just kind of reference, discuss
illustrated.
economic stagnation, which I mean is kind of undeniable, mentioned that there, like the fact that, jobs are going to be limited for people, of this generation and generations after. And now AI and how that kind of reframes everything. So you argue this is not five separate problems, but rather a feedback loop. So can you walk us through what you mean by that and why the timing of AI matters so much?
Absolutely. So let's go through what the polycrisis is. A polycrisis, again, converging of many polycrises. Okay, so climate. Climate stress, all right, causes stress upon water tables, crops, and then therefore we now have climate-driven migration, right? As humans move from once sustainable living places to unsustainable living places. That creates social fracture, right? Like, oh, where are all these immigrants? The brown people are coming, right? Like, I mean, and then we get into that. After that, like once we have this influx of labor, now we're looking at, under the current capitalist system, economic stagnation because labor becomes devalued. Therefore, the labor pool gets diluted. Therefore, the bargaining power of labor versus capital, right, becomes skewed, right? That in itself leads to geopolitical fragmentation as begin again the United States of America is no longer classified as a democracy. We're classified as an oligarchy, right? I mean, and then you see what's happened in Russia. You see what's going on all in the Middle East. It's the consolidation of wealth and control. And it's this cycle that repeats and it's all being accelerated. And so they're all feedback loops. So as the oligarchs continue to suck up more and more resources, then guess what? They consume more and more resources, which then drives climate change. So again, you have this series of feedback loops that creates the current polycrisis, right? And they're self-reinforcing, and that's never happened in human history. But that's why it is so important. AI is so important because as we have to, we being humanity, have to deal with all of these polycrises, right? We don't have the time or resources, right? Time is a resource to address one after the other, after the other, after the other in sequence. We can't do that because, again, they're self reinforcing feedback loops, right? Systems thinking, but also because we don't have the time or energy to just do it. So now this is why we need AI, because by automating all of that intellectual, right, all of those knowledge tasks and offloading all of that remedial knowledge tasks onto machines, that allows us, humanity, to pursue that creativity, that imaginative, like to add our special value, which is the problem solving key, right? So we can get AI to just sort through all the data. We can do that. We can have embodied AI powering disaster recovery machines, and we can organize it all through democratic and rights aligned artificial intelligence. And if we do that, we create Star Trek.
Mm.
I mean, the dream,
So
right? Sorry.
It
yeah,
is. And
I
that's
mean
the story of the book. That's why we start at the crises, we start at the problem, because the first key to solving a problem is properly identifying where the problem's at. And that's where the
that's
problem is.
true. That's true. And then really like an overarching theme that I heard kind of amidst those crises was just the consolidation of power. And something else that's really compelling about your book is that you kind of describe, how that power consolidation is then, kind of put across for superpowers. So,
Yes.
Fleur can kind of speak to this with like her, community and like you kind of know, social sciences background.
Mhm.
So you've been mapping these four hegemons, which is the US, China, the EU, and India, and you argue that they're not just competing technologically, but building fundamentally different versions of what AI is. You've also described the EU, which, we're kind of on, as governing an alternative, not building one. So is that a criticism or a compliment?
So that is neither a criticism nor a compliment, just a statement of truth. So let's go back to the four AI hegemons, and I'm going to tell you what I see from my vantage points. This, right? So that polycrisis we just talked about, it's occurring at, again, that very special time in history. Because there are these things, and they're called K waves, Kondrativ waves, right? They were theorized by a Russian economist, and that is that technological cycles in the modern era, right, go in about 40 to 60-year cycles. We, being humanity, the royal we, are currently exiting and one of the cycles, which is the ICT, the information and computer technology cycle, right? And we're entering the artificial intelligence cycle.
Mhm.
So we're transitioning and we're upgrading in technology. So we're transitioning K waves, which means our economy is shifting, right? At the same time that we have all of these polycrises we're dealing with. And that's why this time feels different, right? Which is the subtitle of the first chapter, right? So when you combine like what's happening with the K wave, this is where we get the four emerging powers, right? Which are the United States, China, the EU, and India. The reason why this is unique is this is the first time in modern history that a K wave, a technological cycle, is not dominated by a single hegemonic power. We had with steam, we had the UK, right? With the Industrial
Mhm.
Revolution, it was, I'm sorry, the conversion of coal to steel was the United Kingdom. Add nuclear age, it was the United States of America. And so it's all been governed by a hegemon. So that hegemon has been able to enforce essentially a Pax Americana or a Pax Britannia or a Pax Romana on the global order, right? By like, hey, we're in charge, so we're establishing the norms. And that's really what's happened, right, with Europe, India, and the United States of America, right, over the past several decades post World War II. But times change. We're in the new case cycle. It's a reshuffling
Mm.
of the global order. Because again, with
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, it's about what's in your mind, not what's in your hands. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, what I also saw is that you give so on this topic actually, you give India actually a surprisingly like prominent chapter. You call their digital public infrastructure approach a latter move advantage. What do
Mhm.
you think Europe can actually learn from India's model?
So one thing that, and this is Matt talking here, and I know this is going to be a controversial statement, but one thing I would love to see from Europe is just go ahead, bite the bullet, and become a federated like nation state. Just do that, right? Europe is stronger together. Let's, like the European Union, right? The European Monetary Union. I mean, all of that has been moving towards a more unified Europe, right? And the sooner that Europe does that, the better, right? Because again, you need each other. Like if you think information technology, right, and the internet brought us closer, wait till AI has automated half of our menial work jobs, right? And now we only need to work 3 to 4 days a week, right? Like imagine how close
Mhm.
we're going to be then. So Europe needs to come together, and the reason that so when Europe comes together, and Europe has an amazing advantage in that you're a rather late mover technologically based off the US and China, right? I mean, yes, you have a minstrel, but I mean, that's at least, I think, 2 cycles behind, right? Because that's what happens when you have to verify every token. But anyways, so by enacting those same principles and processes and building that same type of digital infrastructure that India has already tested, right? It'll just help Europe accelerate and unify even more, right? And remove a lot of friction points that are in the current system as it is now. I hope that makes sense.
No, 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 it definitely does make sense. Sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead.
So you go into you're discussing how you think the EU should, kind of go closer to America's innovate first, regulate later kind of framework. And then also, we're kind of seeing even the EU AI Act is kind of a living document insofar as we're seeing like even this week. I mean, Fleur was sending me different updates throughout the week on kind of discussions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
read them. But on the discussions of the EU to kind of, neutralize the AI Act more and then also kind of delay it as well.
Mhm.
So you go into that risk framework model, right? Prohibited risk,
Yes.
high risk, limited risk, and minimal risk. From a legal standpoint, you can argue that regulation as code is the future.
Mhm.
Rules that build into AI systems and aren't bolted on afterwards. Can you explain what that actually looks like in practice?
Sure. So actually, I wrote a whole chapter on it. So there is so it's I think it's chapter 17 off the top of my head, and it's regulation as code, and that concept is simple. Yes, you build the rules of the system into the system architecture itself, right? That ensures governance by design. That ensures compliance by design. And then there's literally I want to get into it, but I also want people to buy the book. So yes, there's a whole chapter on how to build AI first organizations and build regulation as code into your RAG pipelines that you then use your models over the top of in order to pull from and ground into. Now, of course, this will never take away human in the loop. Human in the loop, right? The human is the decider. A machine is not responsible for their own decisions, right? That was IBM's determination back in 1957, if anyone remembers that meme. But human in the loop is necessary. So even though we will utilize AI to offload all of these analysis and data analysis tasks, right, from the human mind, we, the humans, still have to remain in that loop. So again, all the details are in the chapter, but the principle is this: regulation as code as a RAG grounding for whatever models you're utilizing is the most expedient path forward. And after that, it's the continuous implementation of human in the loop because humans have to remain accountable for the decisions of the machines that they operate. And that's what AI truly is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good perspective. I can kind of discuss, privacy by, or not privacy by design, but, like regulation by design.
Uh-huh.
I competed in Ireland's national AI challenge, and
Oh, cool.
I was writing these system prompts for
Mhm.
like an AI architecture, and it was really cool kind of, building the rules for that model, and kind of, reading legislation and translating that into code.
And it's not just the rules, right? That like for the system prompts of the model, right? It's also the model itself. Because remember, humans are like engineers are there looking at the weights, adjusting temperatures, right? Like these are conscious decisions, right? That actual human engineers are making about model performance that are then released to the public, right? Like so one common, one most I'm sorry, a prominent example recently is what is it? The latest Claude model, Claude Mystic, right? That's a
Oh, yeah, we
global
discussed that
cybersecurity
at no
threat.
I'd like ad
Yeah,
nauseam.
Mythos, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're all
But
over that. I sent Fleur an
keep in
update on it
mind,
like yesterday or something. Go on.
but here's the underlying truth though. A group of humans made a conscious management decision to release that capability as part of their product offering. Correct?
Mhm.
Right? So again, it's not just like how our models function, right, based off of some type of grounding mechanism or systems proc, wrap, pipeline, et cetera. That's also the functions of the models itself, right? Because again, you can go on x.com and you can get, I mean, borderline CSAM, child sexual assault material generated by Grok, right? And there are a group of humans sitting at XHQ or XA, whatever they're calling it now, making a conscious adult decision to allow their product to be able to perform that function.
That's
Okay.
Exactly,
true.
and without
So
limits.
exactly. So it's not just regulation as code on the user's part. It's regulation and how we build and design the temperatures and tolerances of the models at the actual construction part, right? So it's whole cloth. It's not just saying, oh, well, you're the user and you should have used it correctly. It's also looking back at industry and saying, hey, industry,
Mhm,
we need to put some guardrails on exactly what you're building and releasing out into the public. We
mhm,
can say that for, hey, and we can say that, for suicides, right? I mean, because that's prohibited, but we need actual regulation that actually governs and professionalizes the software development of artificial intelligence models. And that needs to be global standards, right? Or else that's where you get these killer AIs. That's where you get these borderline CSAM images. Like that's how you have this. So that's a part of the conversation as well. Like governance,
mhm.
when we talk about AI governance, it's not just governance on the user's part. It's governance on industry's part as well.
No, I think that's also a good angle to jump
Hmm.
into another part of the book, which was actually where it got a bit more concrete, which was the Kilbane
Yeah,
labor formulas.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you develop what you call the Kilbane labor formulas, a way
I
to
do.
actually quantify how much AI frees up in any
Yes.
given process. You walk through like a 20-person software team example and calculate, okay, 710 freed hours a year. And then you say organization face three paths. Either they can cut people, which is path A, reduce hours, which is path B, or redeploy capacity to like higher value work on path C.
Yes.
But most companies default to path A. How did you come like to that conclusion?
Okay, so the Kilbane labor formulas, yes, I named them after myself because, as far as I can tell on the internet, I'm the first one to put it together. So I'll take it and plant that flag. And yeah, they are actual concrete formulas. So I am certified in Six Sigma process design. I'm a Six Sigma green belt. Never went for black belt because why? I've got the fundamentals. I'll just take it from here. And so, yeah, and so it's all about process. And so, if we're talking about process automation, which is what AI implementation truly is, then we have to define the workflows, and that's what they're typically called, and that's what you hear them called are workflows, right? So, but what traditional workflow measurements don't take into account the human factors of coordination, right? All those meetings, overhead, and that's how that's because AI affects the organization at different layers. So AI is essentially an information sorting algorithm, right? Like that's one of its
Mm-hmm.
primary functions, and people understand that. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that information no longer has to be processed by humans. So that frees up all that thinking time. Humans cannot contain all the information, right? Like you got somebody from finance and from HR, someone from IT. Well, AI can access all of those databases at once, right? So now you don't need those coordination meetings. And every time you have a meeting, you got to have a meeting before the meeting to prep for the meeting you're about to have, right? So all of this
Yeah,
builds.
absolutely.
Right. So all of this is our workday. This is modern labor, correct? So now as we automate that, what happens to all that time and how do we capture it? So that's where the labor formulas come in, right? They take the concrete tasks that we have to do, right? And then they break them apart. They add in we calculate the meeting times, the coordinations, the overhead. And again, this is the hard yards, right? This is the old school process documentation, standing there with a stopwatch sometimes like discovery process here,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's the old DIMAC model: define, measure, analyze, and control. So, anyways, so once we calculate this for knowledge work, well, then that's where all that free capacity comes up because you're not doing those meetings anymore. You're not doing all that coordinating. You're not sending those emails. You're not blah, whatever. You're not going through the file cabinets anymore, right? Like, so you're just there free for human work. Well, our society is misaligned for that, right? Because this 5 day a week, 40-hour work, 5 day a week, 40-hour work week is based off of a Henry Ford model for a 19th automobile assembly line. When was the last time anyone ran a die machine, right? I mean, in an advanced economy. I mean,
I
like,
don't
come
even
on.
know what that is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Like lathing is not a sport anymore. Anyways, so the way that we define and measure labor needs to fundamentally change so we can capture it. And those are the labor formulas. So and now the reason I say that and what can you do with this free capacity, right? So you can either reinvest in the company, okay, to grow and get bigger, right? That's hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're 25% more efficient. That's where that comes from. You can either give it back all to labor, right? Okay, so now we're working 3 days a week. You covered all our benefits. Our paychecks have stayed the same, which that's what I want, right? I want Star Trek. Machines do the work. I'll go imagine stuff and then build it, right? Or you get everything goes to the oligarchs, which is currently happening. And these are all these AI layoffs. So, hey, 8,000
Jeez.
here. That's it.
Another thing we've been covering ad
Yeah.
nauseum. I mean, from there was one recently with now it's hitting the crypto industry.
Yeah.
Coinbase just did
Well,
a
crypto's a
really
scam anyway, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Like that crypto is a straight up scam, like flat out. That is nothing but like, I mean, that's for drug dealers and sex traffickers, and everyone that owns crypto is just backing that shit for them and enabling those illegal activities. That's what crypto is, right?
strong
So
words.
true facts. But, I mean, where do you think it originated? I mean, there's a reason why, we're doing all these crypto pump and dumps. It's like sucker born every minute and two to take them. I mean, it's just too easy for these guys to scam these kids with crypto these days. I
And
mean,
it also is mostly like a Ponzi scheme, but I think that we're
exactly.
getting
But
off
anyway,
topic on
segue,
that
segue,
ways.
segue. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Obviously,
we're
you know
getting
where
off
I
topic
stand.
on that.
Yeah.
But
But
I
yeah.
think bringing it back to AI and labor, which is kind of what we were discussing. This is where the book does get very concrete. We've
Hmm.
kind of looked at the
Yes.
labor formulas. That's really interesting. Now
Hmm.
I think we can go on to governance in the future, which would kind of wrap up, build off of everything we
Yes.
just discussed. So you end with a chapter called "What Future Will We Build?" and you're genuinely asking. You're not just posing it, rhetorically. You talk about a fork in between a Star Trek future, which, Fleur would be happy with, and company towns in orbit. So what does that mean, and how do we govern AI now for what happens in that
Right.
space?
So that goes back to essentially everything through the book and calculating the labor formulas and making conscious decisions about who gets the gains from AI, right? Because if everything goes to the oligarchs, then what are we? We're trapped in the same type of misaligned system for humanity that we see is not functioning. So then we continue on this same path of extracting our resources, extracted from labor. It continues to exacerbate the polycrisis, and then you have the collapse, right? Like, because that's what's going to
Mhm.
happen. Because if the system can no longer sustain, the process will stop. And if the process stops, the system collapses, right? And you see this with climate change and et cetera. So for the very survival of our species, we have to change. It can't all go to the greedy oligarchs anymore, right? Like there has to be a recalibration. And it's measuring what is that recalibration going to be, because that's a part of that conversation that needs to happen across the globe, right? Is who
Mhm.
gets the gains? How are we going to realign our society? Because see, this is the thing. When we automate our tasks with AI, we are also automating the decisions that we are going to allow AI to make, right? What data to access, right? Is it going to be, is all the data going to be considered, right? And now we get into discriminators like sexual orientation, race, all of those things. So are we going to automate a process that does not take into account race when talking about discrimination laws? It's possible, right? If we let a racist automate the task, right? Because
Mhm.
then they will create an automated task that is based in a racist ideology. So it's our principles that are getting automated. It's not only what decisions we make as humans, it's how we make them, right? So that's what we're automating. Therefore, and our culture, our civilization is nothing more than the sum of our decisions. So as we automate all of these decisions and we give them to the machines, we have to ensure that the machines, those outcomes are as equitable and fair and aligned with human and moral principles as possible. Because if not, then our society, the infrastructure of our society, will not be aligned to those principles. And that's a very bad thing, right?
Yeah, but I also saw that you say we need to like become a type 1 civilization, like able to harness our own resources for our own planet before we reach the stars. And we're talking about Star Trek. AI governance is like central to that. Where do you see us on this journey? Because last time I looked, we're on like a 0.7 on the scale
Yeah.
towards a type 1 civilization. But do you think we have gone
Well,
forward or backwards, or are we still
well,
at the 0.7?
so I think that we're still at the zero point 0.7, but what we're doing is we're essentially doing it wrong. If that makes sense. That's the argument of the book. This current system that we have, this extractive system that's exacerbating all these crises that will essentially has the potential to end our species, right? I
Hmm.
mean, we have to do things differently. And that's why the labor formulas and the capture of that. Because again, and it's not just, who gets the gains from all the productivity, right? It's what decisions are we automating? Where are we keeping humans in the loop to ensure a fair and equitable decision and outcome for all of society, right? And again, by automating all this, and this goes to another through line of the book, it affects your organizational architecture, right? Because the only reason
Mhm.
mid-level management exists is to control information flow. Well, now information moves at machine speed, so why are the middle managers there, right? So your organization needs to change. Your organization needs to
Exactly. Why
change.
do we need middle management? Just take them out.
And well, yes, like because as you automate those decisions, you don't need budget decisions anymore if the AI is making decisions within the stated bounds that
Mhm.
you would give the right. So if AI proliferates every organization on planet Earth, which it is, then it's going to automate every ideology, right? Every decision, which decision is our beliefs. It's going to automate every ideology it gets its hands on, right? And so, what type of ideology is going to govern our society? That's the decision we're making with AI. So we have to make sure that everything is as fair and equitable as possible. And that comes with the hegemons and how they interact with each other.
Mhm.
And then also it comes into the playbooks because it's an individual responsibility as well. Because I think what a lot of people have forgotten is that democracy is a contact sport and you can't sit out elections if that has consequences. And I hope a lot of people now remember that fact and get more politically engaged in the governance of their society, right? Because again, it's a contact sport, right? And so that's why I have playbooks for policymakers and regulators, playbooks for the people that build the AI solutions, playbooks for your families and your general workers, right? Because it's going to affect everything.
Mhm.
It's going to change the way we learn, the way we allocate productivity. Because again, if we're only having to work 4 days a week, 3 days a week, what else are we doing with our time?
Exactly.
That's
You
a
have 3 days
whole
left to do something else.
yeah, that's a whole different world, one that we're not
No,
prepared for, you know?
no, true, but I think it's also good for our listeners as well, is because something we talked about last time was also the Maryland project you were working on, which is something
Oh,
you did
wow.
locally. Because I think a lot of people, it's difficult to feel like, oh, I'm making an impact. If you're, for example, in the US, you have yeah, if you elect a president, it feels very far away. But a lot of people don't know you can also do a lot of stuff locally to help out your community and to make sure that AI is being used for, in this case, for locally making good decisions.
Correct. Yes. And again, that's advocating at your local level. There's a phrase in the United States of America says all politics are local, right? Because everything starts from the ground up. Like that's how change happens.
Yeah.
That's how
I mean,
positive change happens.
in working in Congress, the team that I was on, we got the
Hmm.
first bipartisan legislation on GVP passed in 3 decades, and it doesn't get more grassroots than kind of March for Our Lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's incumbent upon, again, and this goes back to something I said earlier, it's incumbent upon every single person to build the society that they want. Because again, if the generations that came before us had taken that responsibility seriously, we would not be in the positions that we're in. We would not be
Yeah.
burning through fossil fuels, right? We would not have the Epstein files and literally a cotillion of pedophiles and rapists all across the world that are just sitting there free, right?
Yeah.
Benjamin Netanyahu's what was he indicted for war crimes, and there's a genocide in Gaza. Why are we doing this? What kind of BS is this? So yeah, that's why I can safely say, I mean, that's why I can confidently say that the reason one another onus behind the genesis of this book and what I do is because the generations that came before us have flat out failed. And so and it comes as a reminder with this that hey, it's everyone's personal responsibility to step up and build the world that they want for their children, and that starts at the local level. So if you're looking for a place to start, look in the mirror, and if you've already done that, go to your local county councils and town hall meetings.
I think it's also a good for us for the closing. I think you already answered this question, but also about the book is called AI for Humanity, so a statement of intent. But what does for humanity actually require of the people building and governing AI right now? Because you mentioned like building at the local level. Would you also say that's your statement for this?
No, it's so what's required of humanity at this point in time is awareness, right? Because that's where we're at, right?
And
It's
that's what we're
aware.
doing with this podcast.
Exactly.
Yes, we
Yes,
definitely
that's what the
resonate.
book's doing. That's what the podcast. It's like that's the stage, right? Because again, it's all of AI at the end of the day, and this is the convergence of the multidisciplinary outlook. At the end of the day, AI is a product. So if we're going to leverage the potential of artificial intelligence to help navigate the next K wave and solve the polycrisis before us, then we essentially have to engage in a marketing campaign for that level of AI interaction, which is also another a fundamental position of this book is to say, hey, humanity, there is a different future. If we do it like this, if we take this path, if we understand that these are the forces at play, if we can maneuver down this road, then we can build that better future. Because again, I even say it in the forward, it's a roadmap for millennials and Gen Z. Flat out. It is a map. It is a path forward to a better future. I truly believe that. And I mean, and if you're talking about the actual implementation, Well, kind of working on that for my second book. It's going to be called AI for America. And yeah, it's about
Nice.
how to actually implement AI into American governance institutions to ensure fair, equitable future.
Well, I'm excited about that
Yeah.
because my AI governance work is based out of New York City, and my policy
Yeah.
background is the Congress of the United States. So I'm looking forward to it, and we'll
Definitely.
definitely get you back on the pod when that is out, whenever that may be.
Well, so that's scheduled for next year. This summer, so I know that we're wrapping up now, but just this summer, I just want to let everyone know I will be in Europe. I'm on a conference tour, so I'll be in France. I'm going to be in Rome. I'll be in Geneva, London, and then probably Amsterdam this year, and maybe a trip to Portugal if it pops up. So I'll be in. You,
Nice.
you, no,
Well,
I'm
that's an
saying like
exciting
I mean,
roadmap.
well, like I said, I've got a book launching. I've got a
Mhm.
brand new robotics startup that I'll just say NDA, NDA, NDA. And, I'm an I'm an active IT consultant and I'm kind of good at my job. So life is good. I'm
Exciting.
writing. Yeah, I set out to be at the cutting edge of technology and kind of found it. And so I'm going to kind of ride this wave for a little.
Amazing.
I
Well,
would
you can
totally understand it. I mean, but I think it's also good then for people to know that if you buy your book or your people can get it signed
Yeah,
if they manage
absolutely. Yeah.
to find you.
yeah.
But also, what I want to say is that where can you find your book, like follow your work, and also yeah, I want to say when do we continue this conversation?
Sure. So find me. So first off, I'm prominent on LinkedIn, Substack. Like those are my two social media profiles. Everything else, I just whatever. I only have so much time on my hands, guys.
Yeah.
So
We
also,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah, in
Also, you
between
can
writing your books,
and
you
running
pop
my
on Substack.
companies and traveling and speaking and conducting workshops. Yeah, all that stuff. Like I said, I just love what I do, right? So it's not really work. It's just kind of a life.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful adventure is what I call it. Anyways, you can go to if you need me for IT consulting, I have athenazephyr.com. That's my consulting company. Build out custom solutions. I'll come and do AI implementations. I'm a one-stop shop. So it's called Athena Zephyr Consulting, the A to Z of AI implementation. Oh, look, marketing. You can also find me at tugandrobotics.com. That's my new robotics startup where we build medical robotics. There's a contact form there. And then other than that, just reach out on LinkedIn. I'll be posting my conference tour and floor. Whenever you want to get together again is when we'll get together again. You
Awesome.
ladies just let me know because I'm just living life. So we'll just link up as we can.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff. You
Awesome.
know
Great
that's
to
my
hear.
mom you know that's my mom's LinkedIn bio is living my life, smiley face emoji.
Yeah.
Living my
Mine
best
is,
life. She got above you
that's
actually.
awesome.
She went up to you, living my best life, smiley face emoji on LinkedIn. And then her experience says cog at the federal government. She
Tell your
works for the
mom I love her vibe.
You would love her vibe. Yeah.
Tell your mom
Oh
I
my
love
gosh.
her vibe. Yeah.
She's from DC. I mean, I have family in DC, so you guys might see each other at some point. She
Totally.
doesn't know too much about the federal about, frontier technology, but she knows a lot about taxes, which is if you're doing a
Yeah, I
startup,
bet.
that might be more important.
Well, I'll hit you up after. I'll hit you up offline. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
tax
Okay.
guru mother. Like, I think I'd like to know her.
Awesome. Okay, well, on that note, we hope everyone watching is also living
Yeah.
their life as Matthew is, or living their
Yeah.
best
Please
life
do.
like my mom. And exciting stuff, exciting things ahead. Matthew, we're so proud of you for
Thank
this
you.
book. Congratulations. We will
Appreciate
be
it.
buying it, hopefully getting
I
it
hope
signed.
so.
You never
Amazon, Barnes
know.
and Noble, it'll be all
Yeah.
the things, electronic. So it's yeah, yeah. But it's due out in June. Yeah, that's kind of important, right?
Yeah.
So
Maybe it's good to say indeed. What's the exact date that it's
yes.
gonna? Is there a
So right.
pre-register list people can sign up
No,
for?
no, all that stuff. No, it's just straight up. It's just going to be June 1, and I just drop it. It'll be Barnes and Noble, and again, it's because look, I'm a one man. I'm a solopreneur. Like it's me and a whole lot of AI
I
agents. To
love
be
that
quite
word,
frankly,
solopreneur.
yeah,
That's my word to describe. Someone asked me what I do for work. Oh, I'm a solopreneur.
yeah. Like that's what I do. Like I just walk my path, and I'm just trying to make
Yeah.
the world a better place while I do it. You know what I mean? So
Amazing.
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah, and yeah. So no, I'm a solopreneur. So it's pretty cool. Love it.
For
That
everyone listening, yeah, let's
yeah.
round off the interview. So, for everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. And Matthew, thank you for being on the show. Really
Always, of course.
love having you on it. It's always fun when we're talking. Anyways, for everyone listening, so yeah, the book AI for Humanity Architecting a Better Future by Matthew Kilbane will be out in the beginning of June. Definitely check out Amazon, order your first copy. And if you are in Europe, make sure to follow Matthew on LinkedIn or Substack to know his exact location to get it signed.
Yeah.
Track him
Yes.
down.
So again, it'll be Strasbourg, France, to the International Space University. After that, I'll be in Rome. Honestly, I'm going to drop off a copy of my book to the Pope, see if he'll take it. Why not? Shoot your shot. And then after that, I'm going to be
Yeah.
And after
I
that, I'm
love
going to be
it.
AI for good.
I love it. He's American too. He's American
Yeah,
too.
exactly. I
You
got
know?
Chicago Pope. Yo, Leo, check it out, dude. You want to read this, brother? Anyways,
Two
nice nights.
Americans on a path for a better
Awesome.
future. You know, you can't say
Trying.
no. You can't say
Hey,
no.
trying. Somebody's got to do the work, right? Somebody's got to step up and
Someone's
do the
got to
work.
do
So
it.
yeah, exactly.
So for
And then
anyone
after
listening
that,
to our
Geneva. Yeah.
so for everyone for listening to our podcast, please subscribe to our newsletter on LinkedIn. We make a weekly edition with episode recaps and also everything that's happening in AI that you should read about. Also, leave a review on our podcast to let us know if you found value in the conversation, and hit a subscribe button. We always love more subscribers. We're already at 3,500, but we want to grow more.
Yes.
To everyone else, have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Awesome.
So
Bye,
everyone,
everyone.
All right.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.